This is the introduction to a commentary which will focus on a fake road to success story slash fake rags to riches story. I do not have the best mic available, nor do I have the best software. Nevertheless, I will try to ensure that the audio underlying this video will be as clear as possible. This was worked on only during the spare time of my leisure time, if you will, so the commentary is made up of several audio recordings which ultimately were combined into a single continuous one. With the technicalities addressed, I will now proceed to the actual commentary. And while one person serves as representative sample of the preponderance of fake road to success stories out there, the bigger picture and point of this commentary is just how much power this myth called the American dream exerts in this country. Feeble-minded people then choose to rewrite their bios, their life stories, modeling such after said myth, which of course states that anyone can find great success solely based on their determination and hard work. Those people then conveniently leave out the unusual great levels of luck, connections, and help they enjoyed along the way. And as much as I thought about taking a different, more elaborate, profound approach in regard to this myth, for now I chose the route of using a real-life example at the center of this commentary. So Elgin hails from the Northeast. Apparently the guy was raised in a chaotic household. He was an adopted child as well. And at some point during his teen years, he decides to co-found a gang in Boston, which was mostly active in the punk rock scene and would go to bat against racist skinheads. And he would do that, meaning being a hoodlum who was just, I guess, fucking around for most of his younger years. You know, he would do that until his mid-30s. Now, per Elgin's account, with his ailing mother on her deathbed, he promised her to turn his life around, to look for something more rewarding, more promising for himself than being a hoodlum, and to continue on his account, with his bare belongings, the love of his life, and a dream, he made his way out here to California. So just a brief recap. The guy has this heart-to-heart with his mother, has an epiphany of some sort thereafter, makes his way to California with nothing and not knowing anyone, and eventually, just through sheer hard work, becomes a full-time employed screenwriter. Now, of course, if that version was true, this commentary wouldn't exist in the first place. It is time for a much-needed fact-check. First off, Elgin's gang was featured on a TV series called Gangland, which ran for a couple of years. And as the creators of that show sought to churn out a couple more seasons, they turned to more obscure gangs. That's where Elgin's gang came into play. And so what they would usually do is they would call in experts, usually former gang members as well as, I guess, members of law enforcement, to provide commentary on those gangs. And who better to call than the co-founder of one of the gangs featured in one of the episodes of Gangland. I'm going to return to Gangland in a moment because of how it ties into the much-needed come-up Elgin was looking for as an aspiring writer. But before that, another key contradiction which is important in the context of the overall point of this commentary. Elgin once claimed that he came to LA not knowing anyone, and that of course neatly fits in with his fake road to success story. Too bad the guy is just too transparent, because on another occasion he stated that there were individuals in the movie industry who approached him about making a biopic of his life, presumptively because of the gang portion of such. And that occurred prior to his gigs as writer. That's what you call opportunity. That's access to insiders. And this is what you call a way too easy fact check. And so to continue on the Gangland angle and how it plays further into the story, about 2 years after that TV series went off air, another gang-based docuseries would premiere on another channel called Outlaw Empires. And the creator of such pretended that it was one of a kind, unique, and superbly authentic, if you will. But the bottom line is that this thing was almost entirely based on Gangland. So it stands to reason that those guys, the creator and his team, were heavily studying Gangland and how they were going to go about their own gang-based docuseries. And of course that meant watching the episodes and coming across the various characters that were featured on that TV series. So as these guys went through hours upon hours of gangland episodes, they eventually would come across Elgin, and that plays a quintessential role in the story. But before that, a very important detail. The creator of Outlaw Empires is also the creator of Sons of Anarchy. And both of these shows went off air around the same time. And he was looking for people who were going to help him on his next show, on his next project. And as I elaborate on the gangland angle and how that connects with that particular creator, it becomes very clear just how much luck and not hard work had to do with Elgin's eventual break. So as this creator of Sons of Anarchy and Outlaw Empires was working on his next project, he went out recruiting. And he was very straightforward with the criteria for anyone who sought to be involved in the creative process. A, they must be non-white, and B, they must be able to create credible plots around the type of subculture which would be portrayed on this new show. Now, the non-white part was very important to him since the new show was going to be based on a non-white gang, and he felt only those with non-white heritage would be able to convey those stories authentically. Now, it is understandable to look for those one assumes to have unique insight, but it also means that those with rather spotty resumes, like an Elgin, benefited tremendously in the process. It's irrefutable that in the context of the creator's recruitment, identity was a comparably outsized component. So as this creator slash producer of gang-related content was going through all these episodes of Gangland, he would notice that Elgin was the only aspiring screenwriter amongst all these guys that were called in to provide commentary throughout the run of that TV series. So in this producer's mind, he had found his recruit, who matched all the aforementioned criteria. Elgin was non-white, and he used to belong to a gang which this producer deemed necessary in order to create credible stories surrounding outlaw life, incoherence notwithstanding. Consequently, and it's just the logical conclusion here, it wasn't little Elgin's underwhelming resume as a writer which landed him that gig, but rather highly advantageous qualifiers which were heavily identity-based. Alright, just a brief recap. So the guy comes over here, there were already people waiting on him because they wanted to do a biopic of his life. Then he does a couple of minor gigs before catching a major break courtesy of this guy who does gang-related drama and who was looking for a person that had certain credentials that were entirely based on identity as opposed to resume. However, this distortion of truth, him pretending that there was not a network of people wanting to work with him, is not even the most egregious example of deception in the story. That would be a fundamental and great advantage Elgin downplays and at times completely leaves out when interviewed. And that advantage is his access to wealth that he's enjoyed for quite some time, and which makes his self-portrayal as underdog utterly laughable. Obviously, that access played a vital role in his transformation from hoodlum to aspiring screenwriter to eventual full-time employed screenwriter. And that access to wealth matters tremendously in this story because it's just not enough to want to change your life. The question is A, can you get rid of any financial baggage so that you can start with a clean slate and without any worries that these financial concerns will come back to haunt you in your future endeavor, in your future life at large, really? And B, are you going to be economically viable? Will you be able to sustain yourself? Because, of course, the assumption is that you seek to maximize the time available towards your new endeavor, at least initially. You want to perhaps take a whole year off so you can just focus on that. That concern is pivotal since economic pressure is a potentially serious threat to time availability. Now, luckily for Elgin, none of these concerns ever worried him, since through his relationship he had gained major economic privilege. And that economic privilege was sorely needed given Elgin's predicament around the time he sought to turn his life around. After years of being a busy hoodlum running around the streets of Boston, going in and out of courts, he accumulated legal fees amounting to $300,000. Yes, $300K. A bill of that size would challenge quite a few and crush many more, but not in Elgin's case. Due to his love interest and the resulting access to wealth, this bill, equaling nearly $1/3 of $1 million, would not even be an afterthought. I will personify the source of Elgin's economic privilege in a moment, but first a reminder of the point of this commentary. Exposing fake rags to riches stories, or any fairy tale, in which the subject takes deep-reaching liberties to convey how they supposedly overcame great odds. The few individuals in this country who are actually able to take an objectively based approach to evaluation, not an emotionally charged one. And believe me, those people are very rare, especially in this day and age, and especially in this country. Those individuals would summarily dismiss any one person claiming the rags to riches stick when that person had access to the type of wealth which will be described in the remainder of this commentary and which greatly aided Elgin in getting a second chance in life. And just for context in regard to the greater point of this commentary, just consider the massive benefits that came along with this access to wealth and what it meant to have this debt removed once and for all. There were no more worries about repayment. There were no more worries about how this could affect this guy's credit, if other loans routinely taken out by citizens, such as for cars or homes, would still be a possibility, or if the legal authorities this debt was owed to could even garnish future wages. There were no more worries. On this part, I will elaborate on how that access to wealth for Elgin came about and how it fundamentally paved his way as he sought a better life. It was essentially an accompanying yet major benefit of his relationship which, by extension, delivered the economic privilege which was so crucial to Elgin's eventual ascent to a higher standard of living. And of course, I'm referring to dad-in-law, effectively his daddy. His father-in-law is a financier, which one can confidently call a whale, to borrow an often used term in the financial world to describe big-time money managers. These individuals only deal with large quantities of capital, a big shot, not your typical investment planner or stockbroker. It goes without saying that in such a powerful position, wealth easily gets accumulated. This is somebody with deep pockets for whom the amount of Elgin's debt was no challenge whatsoever. And that's exactly what was needed given Elgin's predicament. Because of course, some common hoodlum from Boston would never be able to cover a bill of $300K. But a hoodlum who picked the right mate, that's a whole different story. So when son-in-law calls and asks to have his entire debt of $300,000 discharged, Daddy would do so without batting an eye. So there are two facets to Elgin's turning point in life. One, getting rid of all the financial baggage from the past. Wealthy dad-in-law took care of that. Two, be not just economically viable upon arriving in California, but be in the most favorable position where Elgin could dedicate all his time to his new endeavor. Needless to say, that great advantage was once again facilitated by that wealthy family member. And of course, most people would do the same, as they should. Having access to a source of such monumental wealth is rare and can be life-saving. Elgin is a prime example of just that. And while the logic checks out, this was still a very generous move to make by his wealthy daddy who paid the thing in its entirety and not just a portion of it. That fact also matters because oftentimes these government entities sell these debts forward to collection agencies after a given period of time. Once that happens, the debt might just become unmanageable. So again, the magnitude of the relief provided by dad-in-law on Elgin's behalf cannot be understated. And so, despite his rather questionable portrayal of his life story, at this point there's really no difference between Elgin and some trust fund baby. Both enjoy an invaluable advantage when it comes to life-changing scenarios such as wanting to start life anew, wanting to start over, but doing so with ease and absent any adversity. And that is made possible in both cases, in Elgin's case and the trust fund baby's case, through that wealthy family member. And so there's no struggle here. Dad-in-law alleviated all financial concerns and served as substantial financial cushion, and those people in TV who created an entire niche, a whole genre made up of content based around gang life, were proactively looking to work with him. Pretty easy ride. In return for all this assistance, of course, he had to put in some work, had to tap into whatever warped creativity of his to deliver storylines, mediocre as such may be. But what he's been trying to sell, him overcoming great odds, that there was a struggle or major challenge to get ahead in life, not so much. And so, in summary, the story that Elgin came to Cali in a raggedy van with nothing but the love of his life and a dream, and that only hard work and determination got him to a better place in life is simply untrue. It's a classic example of how a mentally fragile dude needs to make stuff up since he obviously feels insecure about his actual abilities after being on the receiving end of so much luck. Alright, moving on to the final part of this video. As I mentioned before during the introduction, there were technical limitations I had to contend with, but that did not deter me from delivering an audible video. I also stated that I only sporadically worked on this, so my objective was the eventual upload, not views, not likes. Nevertheless, for any triggered snowflakes out there, especially the ones in little Elgin's social circle, a very simple message. I won't give you fools a forum to publicize whatever low IQ flotsam, Google it morons, you wish for me to hear or see. My channel, my realm, my rules. You're way too emotional anyway, just like your little guy who had some kind of meltdown on Twitter after getting owned and was banned shortly thereafter. I'm pulling up the screenshot right now. What a pathetic showing, by the way, for a supposed tough guy. If for anything this commentary should serve as yet another chance, undeserved chance for this punk to learn how to check his emotions, to check himself. Dude's in his late 40s now, it's just about time anyway. You idiots will have to accept that this is a one-sided arrangement. You listen to this commentary, you get triggered, but have no audience with me whatsoever. And I get to kick back and chuckle at that fact. This concludes this commentary. I'm out.